Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to talk about losses. But before we get on to that, let's just remind ourselves of our risk disclaimer and note that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades were taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Then there's risk of loss in trading and investing. All professional traders know that losses can and will and do happen, and that's what I want to look at in today's video, because I think there's too many software vendors only show good trades and never actually show any losing trades in their videos. So I want to do that today. In some recent videos I've been looking at what we call our holy grail trade, which is one of my favorite trade setups because it looks to get in a potential wave 3, which is the strongest and longest setup in a completed 5-wave sequence. But today I want to show you a setup that didn't unfold as anticipated. So today is the 4th of January. There we go, that's the end of the 3rd, today's the 4th. So I just want to show you how the US E-minis were setting up today. Let's have a look at the 15-minute chart of the ES. And here you can see I had a decision point resistance on. I'll just clear that off and show you where I put that on. There was the last high. Right mouse click, DP. That gave you an area of where potential resistance was coming in. And as you can see, on the first 15-minute bar of the day, we went up into that DP resistance and then started to decline down. In other words, on the 3-minute chart, the largely trend was deemed to be down. You can see our MTP trend turned red a bit later in the day as well. But at the time, it looked as if the largely trend was down. Similar kind of setting on the ES. Here, the trend was grey. Never actually declined enough and went blue, but the market I was actually looking at myself was actually the NQ. Again, I'll go to the 15-minute chart. I'll take everything off here, and here's the last pivot high. So if I right mouse click, do DP, can you see how we had exactly the same situation as the ES, where we had the market go up, touch that high, and then started to decline down. If we go down to the 3-minute chart, we can see that in more detail. There it is, touch the high there. So this is the situation we had early in the day, and here we had the ES at 15-minute resistance. You can see there it is, 15-minute resistance, starting to decline down. Largely trend looked to be down. The NQ is exactly the same. Largely trend looked to be down off this 15-minute DP resistance. The MTP trend had gone red in this case as well, so we were looking for potential sell setups. Therefore, we ignored these buy setups. So the setup that I was actually following myself is if we do the bar replay and go back to this bar here, you can see there was a potential TS3 sell setup. Right mouse click, do analysis. Looked to be a perfectly good trade setup in the direction of the large tree trend, which was down, and a perfectly good trade setup. Remember, we use correct position sizing to keep our initial risk small and under control, so when our trades are losing trades, the losses are kept small, but when the profits are large, the profits are large in relation to the initial risks. Here, the first target would have been a potential 4.2R or 4.2 times greater than the initial risk. In fact, this could have even been considered a holy grail trade setup, where we'd go to the typical wave 3 WPT, and I'll show you that on the 2-minute chart in a minute as well. But I just want to show you what unfolded here. The next buy you'd have been taken into a short trade. You can see it triggered a short trade. Then basically the next buy you'd have been stopped out. Can you see that we now have a history triangle here? So in other words, we don't hide anything. That losing trade is there, so you can analyze it, and you would have seen it would have been a losing trade. So that's what I wanted to show you, in that we had a perfectly good trade setup there that looked like it was a holy grail trade setup, where the potential profit was almost 8 times the initial risk. It was in the direction of the large trend, coming off a 15-minute or higher time frame resistance. We had exactly the same position in the ES at that same time. Both markets were looking to be declining, therefore that was a good sell setup to take. But as we've just seen, that would have resulted in a losing trade. So that's why I wanted to do this video today, to show you and remind you that losses can and will and do happen when you're trading. The trick with MTPredictor is when the losses come through, and they will, as all professional traders know, the losses are kept small. In this example, 1 risk unit. If the trade had gone down to the target, the profit would have been 8 times the initial risk. In other words, 8 risk units. Let's turn training mode off and just clear that all off and go down to the 2-minute chart and show you that that would have been a potential holy grail trade set out at the time. Again, our MTP trend indicator was red, so all the way through here you'd be looking for potential sell setups. And here's our history triangle. I've zoomed in there. Can you see that? There's our history triangle there, showing you that on this bar here, at the time, that would have been a TS4 holy grail trade setup. And as you can see, I'll just place the analysis on again so you can actually see that in the chart rather than me zooming out. You right mouse click, do analysis of the red cell bar. That was the potential trade. From there down into the typical wave 3 WPT for a potential 8R profit. But just as with the 3-minute chart, that would have been stopped out for a losing trade. So again, no matter how good the trade setup looks like at the time, there's no guarantee that any trade will actually be profitable. This is why we have stops. This is why we use correct position sizing. So when the losing trades come through, and they will, the losses are kept small. But this still remains my favorite trade setup, because even though this was a losing trade, the loss was only 1 risk unit. That's why we use correct position sizing. When the market goes to its first target, which is the typical wave 3 WPT for our holy grail trade setups, then as you can see in this example, the profit would have been 8 times the initial risk. So this was a very good potential trade to take, because the profit was approximately or potentially 8 times greater than the loss. But in this particular case, we actually had a losing trade. So again, I want to remind you all that losses can and will and do happen with any trading system. And I just thought it's important that I did the video today to show you a potential holy grail trade setup here in the NQ that looked to be absolutely perfect at the time, but the market always has the last word, and in this particular example you would have been stopped out and it would have been a losing trade. But as I've said before, the trick is that loss was kept small by the use of correct position sizing. That is the key to successful trading, having small losses and large profits, not avoiding the losses, because losses can and will and always will do unfold. With MTPredictor, what we do is keep these losses small in relation to the potential profits.